All right, we are go for launch.
Good evening and welcome. I'd like to call the Henrietta Town Board meeting for August 11th, 2021 to order. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Here.
Councilmember Stafford,
Here.
Councilmember Safranek,
Here.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Here.
Supervisor Schultz.
Here. We'll begin tonight with a silent prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the preceding minutes from July 19th, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? This would be the town board workshop meeting minutes. Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Make a motion to approve the July 21st, 2021 town board meeting minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Just out of curiosity, is Walt Kalina on by any chance? Okay,
No,
let me know if he does happen to get on. Okay, first up, we have a presentation on the local waterfront revitalization program, or LWRP. You bring up the slide deck?
I'm sorry, I have a lot of windows open. Give me just a second.
No problem. We probably should have dropped it into the folder as well. Okay, so the local waterfront revitalization program, it's a grant we applied for from the New York State Department of State, and it's, I'll call it a two-step, although it's many more steps in that process. But the first step is to actually develop a plan. The idea of the local waterfront revitalization program is exactly what the name sounds. It's to revitalize waterfront areas. In Henrietta, we have two. One is the river and the other is the canal, for a very small stretch in the northeast corner. So we've put together an initial list of projects, potential projects. We've got some additional ones. We created a waterfront advisory committee. And we've had, I think, one meeting so far. We're having a second one in a week or so. And then we're also looking for people to join working groups. So if people have an interest in a specific project, have them reach out to me at supervisor@henrietta.org and let me know, and we'll get you involved in the project. Go ahead forward. Just going to run down quickly some of the projects. Advance? No, thank you. So one of the first ones is a Towpath park space. So we've been talking with the JCC. A lot of people think the JCC is in Brighton, and part of it is, but the majority of the building and a good portion of their land is actually in Henrietta. The town line actually goes right through the middle of their building. And the idea of this is, so the towpath is on the southern portion of the property. we would essentially get some public land from the JCC. We would set it up so that there was a bench picnic area type of thing. Think Schoen Place, out front, you know, and then the idea is on the backside, there would be, hopefully somebody would come in and open up an ice cream shop or cupcakes, I don't know. But something that would be good for, I'm going down the canal path. If I'm somebody who can't make it all the way down to Schoen Place, it would give them a spot to hit in town. The JCC has talked about getting us vehicular access, not for patrons, but for deliveries and stuff like that through their property. If anybody has any questions on any of these, I'm just going to go through them quickly, but if you do, raise your hand, both either here in person or using the stuff online. And Becky, don't hesitate to interrupt me if someone raises their hand. Okay, next, project 2. So project 2 was actually proposed a couple of years ago. Well, we didn't have an LWRP back then, so we really couldn't do much to it in terms of getting funding. But it was the idea to put a canal launch on the Henrietta side of the canal, on the west side of the lock 32, 33. I forget. I think it's between 32 and 33. And so it's basically just an idea. Again, they had already developed it, but there was no funding vehicle to go through. So we're going to add it to the LWRP. And if there's ever interest in making this go forward, we'll have the ability. One of the things I will note, you don't have to do everything in your LWRP plan, but if it's not in your plan, you can't go and get LWRP funding for it. So you'll find that the plan's going to have a lot of things in it. Next, project 3.
I do have a hand raised.
Go ahead.
This is Kevin Yost.
Yes, the canal lock at Edgewood Avenue is lock 30. Yeah, Clover Street lock is lock 32. There is no lock 31.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Project 3. So Ballentine Bridge Waterfront. One of the things on the local waterfront revitalization program, we mark wetlands, problems with shoreline. So it's not just about revitalization as in properties along the shoreline, but also the shoreline itself, as well as important ecological regions around there. But one of the things we were looking at is, you know, that we do some sort of fishing pier and maybe a kayak canoe type launch or something like that. There isn't much parking there. There is room for a little bit of trails there, but we would try to work with RIT, putting a parking lot off of their entrance right there. And so again, what would happen is the grant does have in there the ability to get funds to acquire land to add to a facility. So that's one we'd be looking at. Project 4. There's been interest for some time, the Chesapeake Pond becoming a town park. We've not been interested in it because we don't have the budget to get it up to grade for use as a park. And so one of the things we've put in here is put it into the LWRP, so that might be a possibility. And so that would include putting a trail around the park. It would include also improving water conditions in the park. I preliminary just have the idea of like 3 aeration fountains. With all these things, typically it's a phased development approach. So like phase 1 is typically then we would get some amount of money to actually put together an engineering plan to, you know, working with architects and engineers to put the final plan together and then execute on it. But this is kind of the conceptual plan. And so that land would then switch from the HOA to become town land. But again, right now, we're not interested in it because we don't have the money to do the work necessary to bring it up to par, to make it parkland. Project 5. Westminster Road development. Westminster Road is a private road. There are some houses back there. So some of the houses are on one parcel, a bunch of houses are on a separate parcel, but the only access is through Westminster. The other issue we have is that Rivers Run community only has a single entrance. And so if there were ever an accident on Fairwood Drive, everybody inside that development is kind of blocked off until the emergency vehicles clear. So this would provide a second entrance coming out on Westminster, which also would avoid the giant hill and be a safer entrance and exit. So
It's a very good idea.
again, the large green area is wetlands. There's a couple yellow areas that are private lands. We'd have to get the road right away from the private folks, but the idea is that those areas could then become developable for a waterfront, in fact, one of the places there used to be a waterfront restaurant. So that's one of the things we're looking at. Project 6. So this is an East River Road Sidewalk Interconnect. For those unaware, we are currently in the process of we're in the design phase, largely done with it, design phase of the East River Road sidewalk. This project has been dragging on forever because the state is involved. And it's been a nightmare. But hopefully we're getting close to where we're actually able to start building it. But one of the things we want to do is once we have that sidewalk in place, we want to connect it to all the other waterfront stuff and also use it as a connection to connect over to the Lehigh Valley Trail, which runs up the east side of the RIT campus. So it would be a sidewalk or multimodal path on the north side of Bailey Road, interconnecting the two. And then the orange trails you see off to the left, those are actually being done by a private developer who is putting those trails in that would connect both to the East River Road sidewalk as well as to the next project. There's your cue. Project 7. Thank you. Which is the Riverwalk Trail. So we've acquired most of the land. There's 1 or 2 parcels left from the Riverwood Tech Campus, which is the old Kodak facility, all the way down to the Rush border. And actually in the LWRP, we are partnering with the Village of Rush. And there are, in addition to the 11 projects you saw listed for us, and there's might be a 12th. In addition to 11 projects for us, there is, I think it was 6 or 7 in Rush as well. And so this Riverwalk would continue into Rush in the early phase down to 251. And in a later phase, assuming we can acquire either access to the land or the land itself, would go all the way down to the Lehigh Valley Trail Diamond Branch, which actually is a bridge over the Genesee River and then thus connects to the Genesee Valley Canal Greenway Trail. So the idea is to interconnect all these trails so that there'd be a whole bunch of paths that canal also goes north all the way up to Genesee Valley Park. It goes by Awatka Creek Park. There's a lot of interconnecting trails. To the south, it goes all the way down to and past Letchworth State Park. So it's a big trail system that we would be interconnecting there. Next.
I do have a hand raised.
Go ahead.
This is Kevin Yost.
Yes, First of all, it is the town of Rush, not the village of Rush. And I assume this trail would go through Breeze Park, the existing trail that goes from Breeze Park. It seems to go on and on and on. I was there walking the trail and last year, and it seemed to never end, and probably would go through the Rush Riverside Refuge area or whatever it's called, and then eventually to the Lehigh Valley Black Diamond Trail near West Rush, and then there's the Genesee Valley Greenway, which is the towpath of the old Genesee Valley Canal and Pennsylvania Railroad.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Project 8. So again, from a water quality standpoint, there are a number of issues with Lake Pamela, which is the name of the largest, I guess you can call it a lake. They call it a lake. I think of it as a giant pond in Riverton community. It's basically formed by damming up a stream. We often have algae issues, and especially in the one portion, because of the current shape of the lake, there are backwater eddy areas that never get any water flow. And so you don't just get algae accumulation, you get large piles of green slime. And a number of years ago, there was a proposal from an engineer at, I think it was Vanguard Engineering. He is now our town director of engineering and planning. But it was a means to redo the shoreline, so to create better flow. And then also we would today, to change the flow rate out of there, we have to physically go and lift up these large timbers. I would prefer instead, you see in a lot of places like Canisius Lake Outlet, for instance, has it. It's an adjustable weir so that you can basically change the level of the outlet. And the reason for that is as the water becomes stagnant, you lower it, gets the water moving again. You know, basically all summer long, it would slowly go down. As you know, any rain events, you would bring it back up to catch that new water, so that again, you'd have that ability to keep the flow going. So that's again, project 8. One of the things I would say is there would be some reclaimed land there that would become, I'll call it parkland. Although we would probably try to work with the Riverton Community Association to have them add it to their grounds rather than to add it to our grounds, but we'll see how that goes. Project 9. Project 9, Riverbend Park improvements. So one of them is we're seeing a lot of shore erosion, which isn't unexpected on a large bend like this. So there are things that can be done to shore up the shoreline without dramatically affecting the river, and therefore create less chance that a section of the shore gives way under someone's foot. That area in yellow is what's known as Riverbend Park. It is now currently predominantly a disc golf course called the Riv. One of the things that area has always lacked is restrooms. And so that's also for the golf course. Just to the north and east of that is the Riverton Golf Course. There's also no facilities out anywhere on the course, only back at the clubhouse. So the idea would be to put a restroom there, located essentially between the disc golf course and the regular golf course. You know, yeah, a lot of male golfers will use nature's facilities, shall we say, but that's not fair to female golfers generally. So like I said, it's something that I know we've been asked. So that's something we're going to put in there. Next slide. Project 10. Project 10 is Riverton Golf Course improvements. Today, we don't currently own the golf course. We've been talking let me rephrase that. We own the golf course itself. We don't own the clubhouse. We've been talking to the current owner of the clubhouse about the possibility of taking that over. And one of the things we talked about that is if we did, we would look at putting a few more children's amenities there, family amenities like a miniature golf course. One of the things I've challenged is if we're going to create a miniature golf course, what would the holes be, especially something that talked to the history of Henrietta. In addition, we would bring, this is about where we would bring the Riverwalk Trail through to get across. We've been working in a lot of these projects, we've been working wherever we can with developers to have developers do the work. So that way it's not taxpayer funded, it's developer funded. And so to the north of this area is what's called Riverton Parcel A. And there's a proposal to develop it. And we've been working with them to add essentially to put the Riverwalk. It's not safe along where it was along the shore because of that shore erosion. We're bringing it away from the shore and around the golf course so that people aren't struck by flying golf balls. And then, so they would basically bring it to where you see the north portion of this parcel. And then we would carry it. We'd have a crosswalk in the straight portion of Route 253 where the visibility is the best in order for people to cross the road there. On the Throughway, there's actually, on the river bridge, there's room for people to walk under there. There is unfortunately not the case for the bridge over for New York 253. So we would actually have to have a crosswalk. Project 11.
I do have a hand raised.
Go ahead.
This is Kevin Yost.
Yes, do I understand correctly, the owner of the golf course not only owns the clubhouse, but also the parking lot for the golf course as well?
He owns the southern parcel that includes the golf parking lot. The town does own a section of parcel that is currently empty, where if the owner of this decided not to sell to the town, we could put our own parking lot and clubhouse there for the golf course. But the current clubhouse and current parking lot is owned by the Domino family.
Yes, and whether they sell or not, I'm not sure it makes sense to have a new clubhouse or parking lot anyway.
Okay, project 11. So Breeze Park enhancement, some of these are already underway through a SAM grant, which is state aid to municipalities. The SAM grant was actually put in years ago and kind of lingered because so we dug into it, found out that there was information missing, updated it, and we've recently been awarded the SAM grant. So if you've been out there, you'll see projects starting. That SAM grant was for an exercise trail to put in a bunch of, I'll call them play stations, and no, that's not the video game. Stations of play, I guess I'll have to call them. And, but it's sort of, think of it as an exercise trail for kids. And then what we'd be looking to add to that would also be, potentially a small pavilion, restrooms, additional trails. We would continue the Riverwalk Trail all the way through and out through the southern border into Rush. And possibly, again, another, looking at the potential of another boat launch here. We'd have to explore as to whether it could be a full boat launch or whether, again, just a kayak or canoe launch. And that's it for Henrietta. For Rush, I'll go through these even faster since they're not us. Go ahead. Or did I not? Maybe I didn't have them. Oh, I did have them. Okay. So the first one is Transportation Museum enhancement. So the New York State Museum of Museum of Transportation is, it's actually on town land. And they're basically putting together improvements to be made there, and especially things that they could potentially tie into the river or the canal systems. And so again, that one, they're largely spearheading that. But that would also include interconnect trails to the Riverwalk Trail. 13. Monroe County Fairgrounds, this is where they've moved to. They currently have some facilities, but not much, especially in terms of they don't have a good arena, I don't know what you call it, but basically the actual grounds where, you have the animal shows and grandstands. And so, again, the Monroe County Fairgrounds Association is spearheading the efforts to put those together. 14. 100 acres nature park. So I like to call it the 100 Acre Woods. It's nature park and trail. So this is this whole area, all of these are part of the Rush Riverside Refuge. And, again, so one part of that is the is the Museum of Transportation. Another part of that is the Monroe County Fairgrounds. And another part of that is this 100 acre nature park and trail. There is an association within Rush that is basically overseeing the development of that. So they've been working on the plans for this area, but it would be, nature trails, maybe some nature observatories, some interconnect trails to the other facilities within the Rush Riverside Refuge, some bank stabilization, things like that. Also a parking lot off of 251. 15. Rochester and Genesee Valley Railroad Museum. Again, largely some interconnect here. I don't know how much that the museum itself can get assistance. That's something we'll have to take a look at because it largely has to be public land in order to get the assistance. There is a portion of their museum that they have that's basically on privately owned land, not owned by them. So I don't know what that deal is, but again, if we could acquire that and add that parcel that covers them to the Rush Riverside Refuge so that they're not prone to the, whoever might take over. They apparently have a good relationship with whoever currently owns the land, but who knows if and when those people go to sell. So there's a lot of neat things there. It'd be nice to be able to essentially preserve it. So that's kind of what we're looking at. But again, the Rochester and Genesee Valley Railroad Museum would be taking the lead on what those improvements are. Next one. Black Diamond Interconnect. So again, basically, if you continue south from 251, you'll get to the Black Diamond Trail. There's an old train bridge over the river. It's been converted to a pedestrian and cycling bridge. So it'd be nice to interconnect to that. The land, it basically goes by the industry school. And so there's a lot of unused land. We would have to basically work with them as to, again, either easements or acquisition of the land to get the trail all the way down there. And last, East River Road water main. One of the problems that the fairgrounds has, as well as the museums, they don't have water. They're on well, if even that. Fairgrounds doesn't have wells. When they have the fair, what they have to do is hook up a fire hose to a fire hydrant in Henrietta and run it something like a mile down. Of course, they were having issues. They had to put in a chlorination station, a whole bunch of stuff. It is not optimal, far from optimal. And so we're looking at, originally we were talking about connecting the Henrietta water supply to the Rush water supply and talking with the Monroe County Water Authority. The two systems operate at very different pressures. And so we would not do the interconnect. The good news about that is there is a historic tree located on the west side of East River Road, right around at the town line, that we would have had to divert around, which would have been very costly, since there is no advantage to normally you want to interconnect because you don't like dead ends to your water supply, both from a redundancy standpoint and a potential for stagnation. So the idea was to interconnect them, but because they operate at different pressures, it would only be there as a manual switch, if that at best. And so it makes no sense to interconnect them. So we'd be able to leave that gap for the tree. The idea is each of those lines would end in a hydrant. So if you needed to flush it, you would just open up the hydrant and flush the line. So that's it. Thank you. So like I said, plans are going on. There is an information meeting on September 14th at 6:30 p.m. here in Town Hall. We'll have more information. We'll be a little bit further along in some of the plans. It's a chance to provide input on any of those procedure or, proposed projects. And, we invite anybody interested to attend. I will note there is potentially one more project in Henrietta. I was talking with the Henrietta Fire Department, specifically Station number 3, which is the Genesee Valley Fire Department. And they are on, I think it's called Riverview. It's right off of River Meadow, but they're actually waterfront themselves. They have a community room, but it's on the 2nd floor. It's not accessible. They also have a boat to be able to respond to shore fires and or river fires, but they don't have a boat launch anywhere around. And so they have to, essentially bring the boat over to Chilai and launch over there. So one of the things we're working with them is to put together a potential project to improve the fire hall itself so that it's handicap accessible. We basically put an elevator to get up the 2nd floor. Excuse me, potentially expand it a bit to have a nicer community room there. And then again, also put in a boat launch for them. So I expect there to be a 12th project in Henrietta in the not too distant future. But that's it. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. It looks like Kevin Yost has raised his hand.
Kevin?
This might sound like a dumb question. All this is wonderful, but I guess I sort of question as to why the Rush portion was brought up in a Henrietta Town Board meeting, and I think that's the jurisdiction of the Rush Town Board and that private Riverside Refuge Group.
Because you're wrong, it's actually all a Henrietta project. We are the ones who got the grant. We elected because Rush was having a lot of problems. They had 3 times applied for LWRP and couldn't get it. So working with EDR, we brought them into our project, but we are the ones who have the contract with New York State, not Rush. We've been working very closely with Rush, specifically Phyllis Wickerham is on the steering committee, along with myself and Deputy Town Supervisor Craig Eckert. And so, yeah, the town of Rush is taking the lead on all of this stuff, but everything will be submitted through the town of Henrietta.
It is a win-win situation for the residents of both towns.
Exactly. Okay. Next up, we have a public hearing for the proposed land to be placed into a conservation easement as part of the York Cluster Subdivision. We are more than happy to hear any public comment, but I will point out that our jurisdiction here only extends to whether we're going to take this cluster land as a conservation easement, whether we're going to take it as future town land, et cetera, and so forth. The decision on the approval of the project itself lies with the planning board, not with the town board. So just want to make that clear up front. But again, you're welcome to make any comments. Any comments made here, we will get to the planning board. But just letting you know that, again, the town board tonight is voting on whether to do it as an easement, which is what we're proposing, or whether to take it as town land. Go ahead, come on up. Do you need an easel?
No, I can put this right here in front of me.
Okay. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about the proposal.
Sure. Thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Matt Newcomb. I'm with Pastoral Associates, representing the developer, York Properties. Just a quick little history on the project. We started out with a 4-lot subdivision here, 4 single-family homes, which by code, it allowed that. We met all the requirements. We came before the planning board. We had some resistance from some of the neighbors about, creating more of a buffer between them and this development, specific those in Jefferson Estates. So we did meet with town staff, and we came up with the idea of going down the road of the town law 278, which allows you to cluster a development to try to mitigate the impact on the entire property. So that's the road we decided to go down. Instead of 4 single-family homes, we're doing two townhouse buildings, 2 units in each building. This affords us the ability to do about a 7/10 of an acre conservation easement to preserve some of the existing foliage for a buffer between this potential project and Jefferson Estates. That easement runs along kind of the southeast property line and then the southern property line as well. Again, to do our best at trying to buffer some of this new development from the existing homes. We did have a neighborhood meeting, I believe it was last Monday. Councilman Stafford joined us and able to try to get as many folks in the Jefferson Estates community together as possible to discuss any concerns and talk about any questions they might have, which went very well. That came at the recommendation of the planning board. Again, prior to that, we'd had some back and forth and some conversations with neighbors. So it went very well, and I think we have a much better plan here than 4 single-family homes. Other than that, I don't have anything else unless you folks have any questions.
We should just mention that, as I understand it, there's a plan also for a dry pond to help with not just the new sheeting that might happen because of an increase in impervious surface, but also to help with the existing sheeting that happens from a drainage standpoint, water running off towards the.
Correct.
Towards the.
That is one of the benefits of us being able to do a cluster development. Again, kind of going back to the New York State regulations, not really required to have a stormwater management facility, whether it was single family home or this particular development. However, again, meeting with town staff, it was something that they were interested in us doing and helping out with some stormwater, which we gladly are willing to do. Just for your reference, that location is in this general area here, which will take the stormwater runoff from any adjacent properties. It'd be to the east, the west, which is higher ground, as well as any stormwater runoff from our project.
Great.
Yes.
Questions first from the town board, and then we'll open it up to the public.
No, I was at the meeting and the neighbors seemed very receptive to the plan.
Yes.
So.
Much more receptive than the single family lots.
Right.
So.
Okay. Questions from the audience? If you are sitting in the audience and wish, just raise your hand and come on up. Do we have any online? Oh, we've got someone in the house. Okay, hold on.
I'm, excuse me, Lori Anderson, 124 Churchview Lane. I'm president of the Jefferson Estates Open Space Association, excuse me. We've been involved from the beginning, working with both town staff and the developer, and I do want to compliment both groups because I think it's been a very productive and positive interaction that we've had. And we are very pleased with the changes that were made and think that it will go a long way to protecting the property owners on both sides of the line. So we do support this resolution tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody online? If so, raise your hand. If you're on phoning in, it's *9 to raise your hand. Any other comments? Anybody else from the audience wish to speak?
It's great to hear that everybody's satisfied. That's what it's all about. Great job, everybody.
Agree. Thank you. Yes.
And I understand that a lot of that had to do with just our town staff and the
Yeah.
and also the developer working together. And
Love
so,
when our town staff is recognizing each other instead of themselves. It just shows how awesome they are working together.
Fortunately, she doesn't sit in on our engineering meetings where we all bust each other's chops. Okay, hearing no further comment and hearing, unless there's objection, I am going to close the public hearing for the proposed lands to be placed in a conservation easement as part of the York Cluster Subdivision. Hearing no objections, public hearing closed. Any sign of Walt yet? We may not get him because he's on vacation, but just in case. And by vacation, I mean he retired.
Permanent vacation.
Okay, can I get my first resolution?
Supervisor Schultz and trying to get this mic in front of me again so I don't get yelled at. Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 17-227, 2021 to authorize bills payable for July 26, 2021 through today, August 11th, 2021.
second,
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 17-228, 2021. Whereas Timothy and Linda Hale have donated $250 to Henrietta Public Library in memory of James Scarnetta, and whereas the check in the amount of $250 was received by the library director. Therefore, be it resolved that the Henrietta Town Board acknowledges this donation and thanks Timothy and Linda Hale for their generosity.
Second.
Any discussion? See, thank you very much for the donation.
Yep.
And I'm sure the library will put it to very good use. Any other further comments?
No.
Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution 17-229, 2021. Whereas Marie Daniels has donated a 3-seat bob runner with a wooden soapstone foot warmer and a wooden sleigh blanket from the 1880s to the town of Henrietta Tinker Homestead and Farm Museum. And whereas the items have been received by the Tinker Homestead, therefore be it resolved that the Henrietta Town Board acknowledges the donation and thanks Marie Daniels for her generosity.
Second.
So the image of the runner is on the screen.
It's really cool looking.
It is
Mhm.
very cool. I would,
It's kind
love-
of exciting.
it is. I would love to know the history behind that piece. Was it something that was in her family or what? It's very cool.
Any further comments?
They just want to ride on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the winter with the
It's a
lights.
one-horse open sleigh. Come
I
on.
better have that foot warmer.
That's right. Yeah. Hearing no further comments, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Sufranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 17-230, 2021. Whereas Mary Anna Mueller, Evelyn M. Welch, Edward Welch, and Michelle Tetchke have donated $300 to the town of Henrietta to plant a tree in memory of Cynthia Ann Welch, passionate embracer of all that life offers. And whereas a check in the amount of $300 was received by the town clerk's office, therefore be it resolved that the Henrietta Town Board acknowledges this donation and thanks Mary Anna Mueller, Evelyn M. Welch, Edward Welch, and Michelle Tetchke for their generosity.
Second. So thank you for the donation and our condolences on your loss.
And what a beautiful way to remember a loved one.
Any further comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Sufranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. So as I'm not expecting Walt to get on, we'll do this resolution now, but if by some miracle he gets on later, we'll re-present it. Fellow board members, I have resolution 17-231, 2021. Whereas the town has need of professional services for subject matter experts, including for environmental and land use plans. And whereas Walt Kalina from Environmental Design and Research, Inc. has provided many of these services, including the multifamily moratorium and associated changes to our zoning districts with regards to multifamily developments, leading to an expanded effort in 2018, the update to our comprehensive land use plan and generic environmental impact study enacted in 2019, the proposal for the creation of the local waterfront revitalization program plan funded by the state in 2020, and the addition of incentive zoning and the update of our solar codes. My screen just came back. And associated supplemental generic environmental impact study enacted in 2021. And whereas Walt has served the town professionally, enthusiastically, has produced outstanding results, and has been a real pleasure to work with. And whereas Walt has recently announced his retirement, and actually started his retirement, and while we are happy for him to be entering the next phase of his life, we will miss working with him on town projects. Therefore, be it resolved that the Henrietta Town Board recognizes Walt Kalina for his many years of service to the town and the community, and along with the members of Environmental Design and Research, wishes him a long and happy retirement.
Seconded.
So, I've had the pleasure of working with Walt every year since I've been in office. And I can say that he's definitely been a joy to work with.
I'll just say we worked a lot with them on the comprehensive land use plan. And, besides that, I haven't had a lot of interaction with them. But on that, there was a ton of work involved and very professional and very helpful. So thank you for all your services.
Yeah, Walt did a great job on that as well as the other projects. And as I look at this list, every one of these is under your leadership. You didn't run them out, did you? You walked to death.
Or to retirement.
No wonder he's retired.
Pretty big projects.
Walt did a great job on all the projects. He will be missed.
And, I will note for the local waterfront revitalization program plan, they actually, Walt and EDR did that one without charging us. They basically put the proposal in, worked with us to put in the professional proposal, and again, it got accepted
Wow.
and funded. And so we've been using them to do the LWRP itself. So, you know, like I said, it says a lot because there's a lot of competition for that LWRP.
Right.
So
That's a lot of projects.
Yep.
There's some very significant projects that you have in there.
Yes, and many thanks for all of your help and assistance. The town certainly appreciates it and you will be missed.
and if you're ever in Henrietta, well, stop by. Hearing no further comments, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 17-232-2021 to call for a public hearing for proposed local law to modify the town code with respect to solar arrays.
Second.
So that public hearing will be September 8th at 7 PM, so which is the next town board meeting. And again, this is there were two portions of the comprehensive land use plan that needed a bunch of additional work beyond what we had already done. But we had to get the plan finished because there was a moratorium on the multifamily, and I was not comfortable pushing the moratorium into a third year. So we decided to essentially finish the comprehensive land use plan as it was, and then address the remaining two items, incentive zoning and the solar code. We didn't want to rush it because we didn't want to have essentially introduce errors in something that's potentially important like that. So this will be the completion of that whole process. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 17-233-2021 to call for a public hearing to fairly allocate the cost of the pump station and force main across 3 sewer extensions.
Second.
So this public hearing we're setting for August 25th, which is 2 weeks from tonight, at 6 PM. Is there, I don't know if everybody responded. Did the 6
That's fine.
work fine? Okay.
I may be out of town at night for work.
Okay. But basically the reason we couldn't wait until the September meeting is anytime you are increasing charges in a sewer district extension, it needs to go to permissive referendum, which means we have to wait 30 days before it actually becomes enacted. As the deadline to put in those charges is September 30th, we had to have this meeting before the end of August. So, and again, the idea, the basic gist of it is the folks in the Woodridge area, which is comprised, the houses that comprise sewer district extension 170, paid to put in a sewer main, a pump station, and a force main. The force main is the output from the pump station to the next essentially manhole down, well, it's arguably uphill, but downstream where it can then return to gravity fed. With the addition of all the homes in the what became sewer extension 193, which is Long Trail, as well as a number of homes on East Henrietta Road, plus the homes that are going in Ward Hill, we had to upgrade that pump station. It did not make sense that only the folks in 170 bear that cost of the pump station and force main. And so we went through and calculated the portion of the debt service that is covering the cost to put those in. And we're splitting that equally, and by equally, I mean by the formula that's done to split sewer district charges, but across all three districts. The portion that covers just the sewer main that was in section 170, that's still only being borne by the residents of 170. But basically the rough breakdown is that 53.9% of the households are in 170. So that's the percentage of that, the pump station costs that they will bear. In District 193 has 43.8% of the factors. And then the last district has 2.3%. That's extension 223. The reason that one's so small is there are currently only 2 houses that have a C of O. So as they, in subsequent years, as more houses go on, their portion will go up, which means the other portions will come down. So it will get, the split will get recalculated every year, and we'll enter the stuff in the, there's basically a database or program at the county that we enter that information in, and that's what calculates and gets put on the tax bills. So this public hearing, again, for people to support, which will probably be 170 because it'll means their sewer taxes will go down, or oppose, which could be 193 or 293 because theirs is going up. But again, I look at it that is the fair distribution. It's not fair to the folks of 170 to bear the cost that was imposed by the addition of the other 2 sewer districts. Comments, questions?
I agree.
Are all the residents going to be informed of this public hearing?
We are. So basically, we are putting together we put together a mailing list. Jeremy in engineering is generating the envelopes. We will send out a letter going to every resident. What we're trying to find is some of the properties, so like some are apartment buildings. You don't want to send it to the apartment itself. You want to send it to the owner. Same thing with a few of the undeveloped lands. They still pay a portion, obviously a much reduced portion because they're not connected to it, but they still pay a portion of their sewer extension. So we're trying to get the address of all the owners, not just the address of the property itself.
And the other question is, how many properties does this affect? Would you say? Do you have a guesstimate?
I do. I don't remember it off the top of my head. If I had to ballpark it, it's something like 50 something in 170. So theirs will be going down. 54 will be going down. I want to say it was 40 something in 193. And then, like I said, currently 2 in 223.
Thank you.
So more people's properties will be going down than will be going up. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution 17-234, 2021, to call for a public hearing regarding the proposed Henrietta Fire District extension into West Brighton.
Second.
So as we talked about at the workshop and other, basically the West Brighton Fire Protection District is it's not a fire company itself. It's a protection district that they essentially contract service out. For years, they've been contracting it to the city. The town of Brighton wanted to basically put it out to bid, and the current winning bid is from the Henrietta Fire District. they wouldn't just contract the service, they would actually add West Brighton Fire District, Fire Protection District to the Henrietta Fire District, creating a larger Henrietta Fire District. Basically, there is roughly $1.6 million in revenue from property tax generated for that area. The current tax rate there is higher than the Henrietta Fire District tax rate. However, we also expect there to be growth in that area. So even though it'll come in at a lower tax rate, with the increase in the growth in the town, we expect the revenues to be about the same. The cost to operate that is a very similar number, which again isn't surprising because that's what the city district fire district, or excuse me, city fire department was operating that for. Now possibly they weren't as efficient and were operating a loss. I don't know, but the point is that's how much money they were generating to operate that in the past. So one of the things that the fire district points out as a benefit is that in order to meet NFPA, maybe, I don't remember the exact acronym, but 1170, they were looking to add one more truck and set of crews to be able to adequately cover all of Henrietta. This would allow them to do it with the taxation, the payment coming from the residents of Brighton as opposed to coming from the residents of Henrietta. As such, they are estimating now that they would not need to increase their tax rate based on other things they're doing. I'm sure their levy will go up. I've never known it not to go up, but if it goes up at less than the growth rate if it goes up equal to the growth rate in town, then that means their rate stays the same. If it goes up by less than the rate of growth in the town, it means their tax rate will actually go down, which would be a welcome blessing because it's been going up for years. Again, we're going to have a public hearing because ultimately we have to vote on whether we approve the expansion of this district. But so far from everything I've seen, I see it as a positive. You know, one of the things as far as that location, if you aren't familiar with it, it's near the old Cinemark movie theater. So it actually has good service for Jefferson Road, especially Brighton Henrietta Town Line Road and West Henrietta Road. The nice thing is it's coming at it from the other direction as the trucks coming out of Brighton. The other thing I will note is if it were to, for instance, one of the people who bid on it, I believe was Gates. If Gates were to be the winning bid, since it's the only Gates truck around, when they responded to a fire in West Brighton, Henrietta would have to be there for mutual support, which means we'd be paying to do that without any corresponding revenue, tax revenue from the residents of Brighton. So that would be one of the worst scenarios for this, is the way I see it. It'd be much more advantageous for it to be part of the Henrietta Fire District because then not only do they support it, but they then also get the tax revenue to pay for it. So comments?
I think the point you just brought up is real important, the mutual aid point. We'd be over there all the time anyways. And this way, at least we're getting paid for it.
Yep.
You know, one of the things that someone had asked is why doesn't the Brighton Fire District do it? It was interesting. I hadn't really looked at it, but there are no roads that cross the canal from the east side to the west side, except at the very edges. So Brighton Henrietta Town Line Road. And then basically they would cross the canal over Winton Road and then have to come across and then up. or they would have to go north. I think it's to Westfall,
Westfall.
come west and then come down.
Mhm.
So this portion of Brighton is really best accessed from either Henrietta or from the city. And like I said, currently it's been being done by the city, but the town of Brighton liked the Henrietta response much better. And again, when you look at that district, it really does fit in well. And I will also note, as I understand it, that area is also part of the Rush Henrietta School District for exactly the same reason, because again, it's very easy for the school buses to get there. It's very difficult for them to get from West Brighton to East Brighton. So a couple board members, I know Mike brought up a couple points in terms of some things, you know, that we will put on there to condition, because they have, Brighton has promised some stuff as part of it, so that they would grant they would essentially, I don't want to say gift, but effectively gift the fire station, as well as up to $500,000 to pay for a new vehicle to operate out of that station. So we wanted to make sure it was conditioned on that. And then, like I said, Councilman Stafford brought up a good point. If in the future somebody decides to argue against this and wants to bring a lawsuit that says that it wasn't done properly, we would want the town of Brighton to fight that in court and pay for the legal expenses, not the town of Henrietta, nor the Henrietta Fire District. Because again, if the fire district is doing it, ultimately it's our taxpayers who pay. So since this is helping Brighton out, because it actually lowers the taxes for the residents of Brighton, it seems to Mike and I that the taxpayers of Brighton would cover any legal expenses to defend it. So those are some of the things we're looking to put in our condition our acceptance upon. If anybody has suggestions for additional items, don't hesitate to reach out. Again, I can be reached at supervisor@henrietta.org. Anything else?
I was just at,
Millie or Mike? Go ahead, Mike.
I was at the meeting for district meeting last night, and their attorney asked if there's anything we want in there for our attorney to contact them and to get it over there ASAP for Brighton, so they can get it to Brighton. So
When's the Brighton meeting?
I believe it is, I think there's a public hearing, and then I think August 11th. Oh, I'm sorry. It was today, excuse me,
Okay.
August 11th.
Is there anyone who disagrees with those conditions?
No, that sounds good. We're protected.
Yeah,
We need to be protected.
Okay. So, yeah, so Don, let's make sure those are in there. I think you already had them in, but let's get those over to there. Right. Sounds good. Okay. Like I said, I don't know that I want to call it an indemnity. Right. Because they're not really indemnifying us. They're just taking on the legal expense. When most people hear indemnity, they get nervous, so. Anything else?
Nope.
Hearing none, please call a roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 17-235, 2021, to adopt the attached updated 2021 town board schedule and revised rules of the town board.
Second. So again, this one would move the start time to 6 p.m. because we would essentially ingest the special use permit hearings right into the town board meeting. And the purpose for that, we had a couple meetings where the discussion went very long in the special use permit meeting, and it meant the town board started late. And that was especially problematic recently when we had a number of school children here. And of course, one of the controversial special use permit meetings or applications was for a hookah lounge. And the kids had to sit through very long discussions about hookah lounges. So what this would allow us to do is if we had a recognition or stuff like that, we could change the order of the meeting. We couldn't jump to the portion of the meeting that the school kids were involved in because it was a different meeting. By essentially combining it into one meeting now, if the kids, for instance, couldn't get there till 6:30, as soon as they showed up, we could pause the agenda, jump to what their portion is, and be able to get them out of here. So that's what we're looking at. This wouldn't take effect till, I think it was October, simply because all of those that have already been advertised and that we already have stuff on the agenda, we're not going to change them. So this is for the future. And so that would be October, November, and December. And then basically for next year, we could then decide, do we like this new system and keep it? Or do we want to revert back to the old one? So it kind of gives us 3 months to try it. And if we like it, we can keep it going forward. Any other comments, questions?
Nope.
Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 17-236, 2021 to authorize placement of delinquent sewer bills on the 2022 combined town and county tax rolls.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 17-237, 2021 to set up a capital project for the facilities building project within the capital project fund and transfer the appropriate funding.
Second.
Say that 3 times fast.
I know, I was thinking the same thing. I was like,
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 17-238, 2021 to declare an item surplus material from the Recreation Department.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Before we go on, I just want to ask Linda whether there's a Scrivener error in 17-237. I just noticed it says transfer 160,000 from the buildings and grounds maintenance capital outlay account into the general fund. Shouldn't it be the other way?
In the general fund to fund said project.
No, we are transferring money out of the general fund, the buildings and grounds, capital maintenance into the capital project.
It says.
That's
in the
not what
general-
it says to me. It says hereby authorize the Director of Finance to set up a capital project fund for the facilities building project and transfer 160,000 from the buildings and grounds maintenance capital outlay account in the general fund to fund said project.
Oh, just reads funny.
So,
Correct. So I didn't write it all that well, but it's saying the right thing. We're moving the money from the buildings and grounds capital outlay account, which is located in the general fund, to fund the completion of the building.
gotcha. Okay, so the new one is the facilities building project.
Correct.
That's the capital fund. Okay. It made it sound like we were moving it into the general fund. Now I got it. Okay, so the account is in the general fund, not the funds.
Correct.
And
Got
isn't
it.
this fun?
It is. Okay,
Sorry.
No problem. I misread it. Millie obviously got it correct because she pointed that out to me after I'd said it, but I just misread it.
Yeah,
As I was
yeah,
sitting
yeah,
there
it's
looking
easy
at it.
to see the,
Too much fun.
read a two into there.
Too much funds, too many funds. Okay,
Right.
more funds than people should be allowed. Okay,
All right, 240.
yes.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 17-240.
Oh, can I interject? I don't think we did 239.
Can't do 239
Sorry
yet.
about that.
Well,
Did we move the other one?
did we?
Did we call the roll?
We did.
We did call the roll on the surplus
Okay,
and then I interjected.
Yes,
all right.
sorry.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution 17-239, 2021 to hire personnel and make the attached change and correction.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Okay, now I'll do. Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 17-240, 2021 to approve the conservation easement area indicated on the preliminary plat for the Urix subdivision.
Second. So again, I think we were all in agreement that we wanted this as a conservation easement, not to take it as town land that we would actually have to maintain.
Correct.
They are going to have HOA to maintain that land. And that's going to stay a private road. So I guess the HOA will also maintain the private road. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 17-241, 2021 to authorize the supervisor to execute an application for a New York State Throughway Authority permit for the Middle Road Municipal Pump Station.
Seconded.
So sorry for the last minute addition, but basically we had tried to see if we could not be on this. But the Throughway Authority was adamant. They won't allow them to bore under because ultimately the sewer is going to be dedicated to us. They wanted us to be part of the permit process.
Mhm.
They want to get a head start on the process. Obviously, they don't have approval yet for the project itself, but because of the long lead time to getting this approval, they wanted to get started now, put in the application. They need us to be part of it. Don has put in some stuff to essentially indemnify and hold harmless the town if they screw anything up while drilling, and also to add us to their
Insurance
insurance
binder.
as an additional insured. So, because normally what happens is the developer pays to do all the boring and all that stuff. And when it's all done, then it gets transferred to us. So at that point, it's all on them. They've agreed this would all be costs on them. If they mess up, they have to pay for it. They have to fix it. We just have to be on the application according to the Throughway Authority.
Okay.
So Craig, coming up.
Thank you. Craig Eckert, Deputy Town Supervisor. I was wanting to introduce you to the new information I had earlier as well. And it's a great time to do it with the entire board and of course with Mr. Young here. And I apologize for my delay. I reached out to my contact at Throughway Authority, who unbeknownst to me switched over to the Canal Group, which might come in handy later. So the person that took his command, I didn't have his contact. I did get a chance to reach out to him last week. He did get a hold of me. And so the clarification on that permit is that we are to sign the owner's permit. They have two separate permits now, and the one for development or construction is still separate. I do want to get that information in front of Don so that he can still work out what we're doing, but that it's not just as though we're getting the permit and therefore doing the work. There are two separate permits with the Throughway Authority now. For some reason, they want an ownership permit
prior to the construction permit.
Gotcha.
So that's what the clarification I was enlightened to today,
Okay.
right?
I
Great, thanks,
suspect
Greg.
what's happened is somewhere down in the past, someone did a project, they put the thing in, and then there was a fight over who owned it, and nobody was therefore maintaining it. That's my guess is what happened.
That's,
So they
yeah.
want their ducks in a row ahead of time before they do the boring.
Yep. So Don, I'll get you that information and you can work through anything else that you need with communication. Okay? Thank you.
Yeah, I wonder
you,
if in
Greg.
that case, the developer would be unwilling or push back against the idea of indemnity and insurance since we're not involved in the construction permit.
Except that if, from the construction standpoint, it's all on them anyway, so why would they?
Yeah, that's what I hope they'll do. Yeah, I mean, so if they push back, then they're gonna be stuck
Right,
because we have it subject to these conditions.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. We leave it subject to that, and
See what
if they
happens.
want to then come back and talk to us in September, they can do so.
So as far as the resolution is concerned, this is authorizing you to apply for the correct permit to be able to move forward on the project?
I signed the permit, yeah, so this would be the owner's permit. But again, it would be conditioned upon the indemnification and hold harmless, subject to town attorney approval. And then that they name us as an additional insured while they're working on that project. So without those two, I'm not authorized to sign and execute the owner's application.
Okay.
Or owner's permit or whatever they call it.
Thanks, Greg.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. That concludes our resolutions. Is there any additional discussion items, either from the public or the board?
I do have a hand raised.
Okay,
This is Kevin Yost.
Kevin Yost, 1474 Middle Road. Good evening. First of all, I would like to suggest that the 1911 former Good Shepherd Church, which will soon become a town performing arts center, be named the Elizabeth Betty Miller Performing Arts Center. She was a pioneer in performing arts with the town recreation department.
I've already put that forward. So how about you support my proposal?
Well, I know, I'm not surprised. I heard it discussed elsewhere, so I guess myself and other people must have been thinking the same thing.
Yep. In fact, I was able to get from Betty before she moved down to Florida. I was able to get some memorabilia from some of the shows that she put on, including Stalag 17, some plaques and stuff, so that we would put in a showcase there and be able to do that. So that is in the plan. We haven't put the resolution together yet, but that is in the plan. You just
Okay,
kinda stole the thunder a little, but that's okay.
I don't mind.
That's okay.
I'd like to further suggest that the burger house next door, if it's going to be used by the Russian area food terminal, fish, raft, and then fish friends in service here, and the Henrietta Foundation, perhaps be named first in memory of Joseph D. Blanca Sr., who is the executive director of the Henrietta Foundation until his death this past winter, as well as perhaps in honor of Melvin and Barbara Whitmer, who for many years ran Raft and Fish.
Both good suggestions. To be honest, I hadn't gotten that far, but something we should definitely take a look at.
Now, of course, I would ask Mr. and Mrs. Whitmer first, and of course, Mr. Blanca's family as well.
Yep. Anything else?
Yes, as I understand, what the town will be paying them, when the town gets the funds, purchasing the parcel at the southwest, the southeast corner of, Western Road near East Station Road, there's, couple are trying to donate, and if that does happen, it is a done deal. It's going to be called Chapman Corner Park, and I'd like to suggest that, the old Three Sisters ice cream stand be demolished, and that end of the parcel along Treetop Lane be sold. Perhaps they could perhaps could be built as a second and rare location for Happy Days ice cream. Of course, would have need planning board approval in terms of the building and the driveways and such along Western Road and Treetop Lane, and as soon as the town gets finances, also, as was mentioned earlier, purchase the Chesapeake Landing Pond and surrounding land, and it could be a fishing pond, and perhaps even rowboats and canoes and kayaks. The fishing pond portion would, of course, be similar to what's at Monroe Park and Tinker Park.
Great. The plan for the southeast corner of the Chapman Park, that would be just a park. We weren't looking to have anything commercial in there. The current.
Well, I was hoping that it could, at the south end along Treetop Lane could be sold and then to something commercial such as an ice cream stand, and they would demolish. My vision would be to demolish the old Three Sisters and then have Happy Days ice cream have a second location near a new building.
If you let me finish, the proposal is to not demolish the Three Sisters, but instead to turn it into I don't want to call it a pavilion, but basically, a roofed structure that has the history of the West Village. So the West Hamlet. So basically, it would be open on the front. The base 3 walls would be open to the park, and then on the inside would be pictures and plaques and stories about the historic nature of the West Village. So again, that's the current proposal in front of there's a committee for that, including members from the Historic Site Committee and members from the Park and Rec Advisory Board, as well as obviously the 2 individuals who purchased the park and are doing a bunch of improvements to the park before turning it over to the town.
Okay, I guess at this point, I'd prefer that building perhaps be leased out to a business to private owners to have an ice cream stand there in the warmer months, similar to how the town leases out the Riverton Golf Course.
So Riverton Golf Course, again, the clubhouse is not on town land. That is on land owned by the Domino family. In this case, you could not you'd run into issues with a private enterprise on town park land. In addition, that location does not support good traffic. And if you were to subdivide it from the setbacks, especially if you were to demolish the building, you would have a lot of problems building anything there. That's why the parcel has been sitting empty for so long. So there are a lot of issues along the lines of doing what you said to do or are interested in doing. But again, the folks who purchased it and are turning it in have different plans, and the Historic Site Committee much prefers it being a historic park than being ice cream there. There are other locations where there could be the ice cream facilities that you said, including commercial properties with parking lots and that have better access. So
one such location being the next door, and the other half of the building of the old corner store next door to Pizza Corner, for Pizza Corner had moved from next door. It's, at last I know, I think there's an apartment there. The Chase family owns it. And then, of course, there's those other land for sale along the old funeral home, the old Cartwrights.
Yep.
And then, of course, there is a Fire Crust up the road. It serves ice cream as well.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any committee or miscellaneous reports? Go ahead, Mike. No, you
Well,
want the rec stuff?
Well, you'll be happy to know that my tablet decided to go through an update, so I don't have my notes in front of me.
Okay, if you
But-
want, why don't we have someone else go and maybe you'll be rebooted in time.
Okay.
Rob, do you have anything?
No, we've all handled everything that I deal with during our meeting. We're good,
Great.
Supervisor.
Lisa?
Library, so the community rooms are all open. I know Mike always asks me that. And August 13th and August 14th is comic book days at the library, and you'll get a free comic. It's the 20th anniversary, and you can go in and get a free comic book. And the library is also calling all collectors. They're going to start using the display cases. If you have a collection that you're proud of, reach out to them at the library and you can display your collection. And the other thing I have is, so you're going to be getting the newsletter, and in the newsletter, we're doing something new, Seeing Henrietta Through Your Eyes Art Contest. Share what makes Henrietta special to you. We're looking for submissions of art from all ages to be considered for use on the town's website. We're going to have a judging panel that's going to look for a variety of perspectives. So we're not only looking for drawings, it could be sculptures, it could be a photograph that you've taken. But go on the website or look at the newsletter and it'll give you some additional information. The deadline for all submissions is October 12th, and it's open to all ages. We're really excited to see if we get just a variety of ages of different ideas of what Henrietta means to them. That's it.
The Rush Henrietta School District is in the process of developing their reopening plan. I think, as we all know and are prepared for, is that COVID changes everything every day. So they are doing the best they can to plan in uncertainty. So they are offering a remote learning option for students in the district. So if anybody has any concerns or anything along those lines, that will be an option.
Great. I will note that, as Lisa said, the newsletter went to the printer Tuesday morning. I haven't gotten an updated schedule as to when it will actually hit the streets. I expect it to be sometime next week. So keep an eye out in your mailboxes. And once they're out, we'll also put it up online as well.
Okay, with my updates, like I said, I did go to the fire district meeting last night, commissioner meeting. And I think I misspoke earlier that public hearing is tonight. And I am not sure if it's tonight they're voting on it or at a later date. And my tablet's continually updating. So a couple of things I do remember from the rec center update was that the rec center programs are now online for the fall. And I believe the soccer and flag football programs are currently, you can currently sign up for them. Also, if I remember correctly, at the end of the month on last Friday, a band will be at the town park. And maybe I got it here, my rest of my notes, if you bear with me for a quick minute. Nope. So those are the two things I remember, but without seeing my
Actually,
notes.
August 20th, and it's something else is the name of the band.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay. Anything else? Hearing nothing, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Hearing no objections, meeting adjourned.